Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 239 of our podcast. This is a question and answer format, so if you have questions, send them to the podcast at this address, podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. Like I say, I do my best each week to sit down and answer them. This week we have a lot. We have questions from a whole bunch of different directions, but a couple of them are brand new. I'm looking forward to answering them. So let's get started. We've got a question from Phil, and he says, it's an interesting question. He says this: every elite coach is an elite learner. What have you learned from being a podcaster coach compared to being a writer coach and a face-to-face coach? Phil, I really thought that was a good question. First, I would say that I am surprised how often, like, a lot of people will ask questions right to the podcast, but they don't, like, they didn't search answers before and things like that. And that got me thinking a while ago. It's the concept of open versus closed loops. I think at the elite level, things are open loops a little bit. If you've ever done something extraordinary, throw, lift, whatever, academics, whatever it is, to go up the next level, the questions aren't always answered. A closed loop question would be something like, and I use this in my new book, who won the first Academy Award for Best Picture? Well, it was a different name, but Wings. And I've seen Wings, and it's a great show. I got to tell you, it's a great show. But the moment I said Wings won the first Academy Award for Motion Picture, it had a different name at the time, but I closed the loop for you. It was done. It's Wings. We move on. Other things sometimes have open loops. Like, for example, if you spent a couple years to deadlift 600 pounds, how you're going to go from 600 to 700. You can talk to people, you can get good advice, you can buy programs, you can go to certain gyms, but to go from 600 to 700, you have to really have to think about some things. Now, we can give you, a whole bunch of coaches in a room could give you a million pieces of good advice. And then we distilled that down into 10 great pieces. And then of those 10, like 5 are really going to help you personally, and 2 are the answer, so to speak. But you still have to figure out how to put those all together and how to apply it. So the number one thing I've learned, it's interesting, I started with this, is that a lot of people want a closed loop. They want an answer. I prefer the open. I like the idea that let's go on the journey together is an open loop answer. The second big thing I've learned, Phil, is a little bit, it reinforces everything I do. And it's simply this. When I first started, Pat Flynn told me that the average podcast doesn't even make it to I can't remember, it doesn't last more than 7 episodes or doesn't make it to the 7th episode, but either way, it doesn't matter. So if you go back to my early podcasts, the quality isn't nearly as good, and mostly that's my fault. Wait, it's all my fault. But, I just keep showing up every week and knocking out other podcasts. I had very, very few followers on my podcast for, probably the first 190 episodes, maybe longer, maybe first 200 episodes, and we're sneaking up. This is 239, and, before we know it, it'll be 250. We're sneaking up on a lot of years of doing this, and it's very much like compound interest. I'm reading, I'm at an interesting age, and so I was going to pull out a lot of my money from this one retirement fund I set aside, and I read this book, and it was talking about compound interest. So I decided not to do it, and I really just, I was going to do it on a Saturday. Say 2 Saturdays later, I looked at that account, and I had made a massive amount in the 2 weeks because it's a fund that is just goes with the stock market. Don't worry about it. But it was interesting so the reason I'm bringing up that story, besides the fact, yeah, he made money, but the reason I'm bringing that up is that sometimes you have to just keep doing something and sticking with the plan, even if it's just the plan. So when it comes to investing, allowing the miracle of compound interest, the rule of 72 and all the rest to happen is far more valuable than, kind of nailing the perfect time to buy stocks, which is really not really possible. So when you come to a podcast, the same kind of thing shows up. You might have 10 podcasts and 5 people follow it. You might have 50 podcasts and 90 people look at it. You might get to 150, and you just have to keep doing it. And so for me, Phil, that lesson that just keeps constantly getting reinforced in my life is the truth. I work with people all the time who want to start up websites or whatever we call them this week, or businesses, and I tell them, you need to have like 7 to 10 readings right in the beginning. Some PDFs, some blog posts. I guess you could start off a blog with one blog and then build on it. A lot of people did that, but the ones that are successful tend to have a lot of meat to them first before you start doing it. So those are the 2 big lessons for me. To review, people like the answers answered. Here, do this. But for me, I'm much more like, okay, that's a good idea, let me know how it goes, is a better answer for me, because I leave the loop open. Now, a lot of the listeners, and I'm guessing 19 out of 20 listeners, want me to close the loop. And 1 out of 20 is like, okay, I needed to hear that, and I'm gonna go, and put the work in. And on the other side, the other great lesson is, you might lift weights for 9 months before anything starts to trend in a positive direction. Fat. If I said it was going to take you 6 months to lose an ounce of fat, I would never have a fat loss client. So it doesn't work. But we all know, all of us, that if we spend the time mastering those great habits, taking care of business, setting up the system so that you get good night's sleep, you have lots of water, you have lots of veggies, you eat good protein, you walk every day, you lift every day, and all that stuff, setting up those systems so that it just becomes automatic is far better long term for your fat loss, for your muscle building, for your sports performance, for your longevity. But a lot of people just want the instant. So it's interesting because your question, and I think this is the reason my brain liked it so much, and I mean that, is it gave me a chance to talk about what I learned in the podcast, but it also really underscores what I learn in my coaching, teaching, and all the other things I do in my life. Phil, that was a fun question. You got me thinking here. I think that's one of the reasons I like the inner circle so much, is that sometimes I feel like, didn't I say this already? And someone who's been in the inner circle, like an RJ, all the times, will say, yeah, you said it, but we still need to work on it. So that's the thing about a podcast or an inner circle or a forum. Sometimes you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over again, and that's the answer sometimes, is that all of a sudden it clicks and becomes a system. Hey, good question, okay? Thank you. And now a question from Mike. Phil and Mike. Okay, I've got the diet and lean muscle mass locked in. He's 150 pounds at 5'7", but looking to get stronger. I've never stuck to a program in my life. However, your podcasts have inspired me to sign up and commit. Oh, thank you. I'm over at Dan John University doing the Easy Strength Kettlebell program. 3 weeks in, feeling good, and finally enjoying it. But sorry, I'm confused by how easy it is. Before I go on to your question, Mike, that is a common issue, especially on the fat loss side. And I know it's emotional. I don't know what all it is. It's psychological, it's emotional, it's social, it's, environmental, it's all this stuff. But this idea that the way to get body fat off is by starving and then just about killing yourself with exercise. I'm a big believer on the nudging side of fat loss. I would prefer that you lose a little bit over a long time. Yet, again, boy, it's hard to market that, isn't it? People love to, you look at the words in some of these fat loss programs, you'll see torched and you'll see ignition or ignite, thermal, you see a lot of burning sounds. And, burning down the house isn't always the best way to remodel, I think. Okay, so now the questions. I swear I read through several articles in the material in Dan John University, but I have no idea how I'm supposed to do the day that calls for 6 sets of 1, add weight every set with kettlebells. Yeah, and Mike, in my defense, when it comes to kettlebells, I've been saying basically the same thing for years. It is really hard for every tool to do every exercise program. The easy strength for kettlebells idea is that you can do it, but there's going to be variations. How you would do that? Well, here you go. If you have kettlebells like I have on the military press, you do a set with the 10s, the 20, the 24, the 28, the 32, the 36. All right. You do the 16, the 24, the 32, the 36, the 40, the 48. But the first thing everyone says is, I only have a few kettlebells. Right. So that's the issue with that. You might not be able to do it. Just keep those reps going. I mean, the nice thing about the exercises with kettlebells and easy strength is that they're easy to just slide over into more volume. I know it's not the best answer ever. I'd have to sit down and work out with you to explain it. It's hard to use just words. Is this a mistake in the program just rolled over the easy strength, no kettlebells, or I'm missing something about another way to add weight or load with bells? No. I am assuming the program doesn't call for people to have 6 varieties of the slightly weighted kettlebells either. So what am I missing here that's so easy I can't figure out? That's it right there. Another person on the forum, they said a funny thing, that I need to take a video of all my kettlebells, and I thought that was funny because I've got like 6 kettlebells over there in the downstairs family room, because in the winter on lousy days I'll train there. And then I noticed this morning in that upstairs, like the family TV room, whatever, I got a 20 kilo bell sitting there because sometimes when I'm watching sports, I do swings on the commercials. So if you don't have 35, 36 kettlebells like I do, it is hard. So one of the things is just drop that 6 sets of 1 day out, and then just keep doing another day of 2 sets of 5, and I think you'll be just fine. Of course, the answer would be buy more kettlebells if you're just a kettlebell person, but I would always encourage somebody. I still think the original 3 were the best. So the 16, the 24, and the 32 kilo bell. And then if you're going to buy doubles, I always thought the double 20s were best for most men, Mike. And then, so there's your 5 kettlebells, a 16, 2 20s, a 24, and a 32. And then after that, go double 24s. There's your 6, and then whatever extra bells you want around. But sometimes it's square peg round hole when it comes to making that piece of equipment work with this program. When you start looking at investing in more kettlebells, I always tell people to stop and look at investing in a traditional barbell set. It could be something like the standard I grew up with, those 110 pound, 50 kilo sets, which still have great value. I see nothing wrong with them. Or the traditional, the 310 set, or the 140 kilo set, which is an Olympic bar and the basic run of plates. When you look at, like, for example, people tell me, well, I literally get texts from people, I got a 60 kilo kettlebell, what should I do with it? And it's like, I don't know. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but that's a huge weight, and it's real hard to do a lot with it. But if you had a traditional barbell and 2 big plates, the 135 pounds or 60 kilos, you could do a lot with it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Not everything works perfectly sliding from here to there. I've had people ask me if they could do the RKC certification preparation program with a barbell, and I'm like, I guess you could figure out some kind of snatch that you could do 100 reps with in 5 minutes, but geez, that's, sometimes it's square peg round hole. So thank you, Mike. And I know it's confusing, and I apologize, but sometimes the tools don't work perfectly together. Thank you. Matt asks a fun question. So we've had Phil, Mike, and Matt, and honestly, this sounds like a family reunion of mine when I was a child. So, question for Matt. What music is playing in the Dan John Garage Gym on a given day? So for me, my favorite music is bossa nova, jobim, I think is the way some people say. Jobim is another. I love the bossa nova sound. Big fan of Quincy Jones, big fan of Frank Sinatra, Mel Torme. I like the American Songbook. If it's not bossa nova or the American Songbook, we do listen to a lot of Led Zeppelin. I found this really cool little album. It's called Introduction to Zeppelin. It's on, on those magic things on your phone. And, having Kashmir and Immigrant Song in a training session is always a win. Some songs don't work. Stairway to Heaven is probably fine when you're, I don't know, but it's not really great. Stairway to Heaven is maybe not the best song for certain exercises, but the Immigrant Song works out for most. So that's what I play. On our tonic days, I put on brain.fm and we put on a recharge. And it's like, I don't know, like tropical rainforest or something like that. And that's always nice. And we set it to the high intensity. Okay, question number 2. I have been working in your Mass Made Simple program for approximately 8 weeks. Okay, so then I don't know which program you're doing because Mass Made Simple is 6 weeks or 7 weeks. It might be something you found online, and there are variations that are a little bit different. I have one called Mass Made Simple Lite, L-I-T-E. I'm wondering if that's the one you're doing. I have noticed an increase in strength, good. And my bride has noticed my shirts and pants are fitting a little different. What do you recommend as a deload week for Mass Made Simple? I have access to kettlebells, a rack with plenty of weight, and a pull-up bar. I also have a long driveway I can use for movement outside. Okay, so Mass Made Simple is a great program. I just finished, and I don't know if it'll be ready by the time this comes out, but I just finished a book on hypertrophy. Which is a little bit more reasonable than Mass Made Simple. Folks, there's nothing wrong with Mass Made Simple. I set it up for, it's designed to be for like American football players, rugby players, people in collision sports, collision occupations who need to put on some size. There's lots of complexes, there's lots of heavy presses, and there's lots and lots and lots and lots of squats. It's a hard program. The reason I came up with the hypertrophy book, people asked, obviously, that's usually why I do that. But I simplified it down on the kettlebell side, which is something you're more interested in. Maybe seems like it's a mix of high rep kettlebell presses and high rep armor building complexes. On the barbell side, it's very similar with some changes. It's weird because for bicep work, this is going to sound weird, but there are exercises in the kettlebell world that I actually think are superior as bicep exercises to things like barbell curls. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of good bodybuilders do so many variations of the curl. And of course, it really feels good, so maybe that's why they do it too. But there are some kettlebell exercises that, if you look at the anatomy of the bicep, they do a better job of what the bicep asks for. So after Mass Made Simple for deloading, a lot of it depends on how you're wired up here. Someone like myself, the way I'm wired, I don't like either or in life, but I either train or I deload naturally. Now, I keep trying to make deloading work for me. I know a lot of people I can that do deload well, but I just think some of us are just wired that if I'm in the weight room, I'm not, I don't know if that's going to translate. But if I'm, when it comes to deloading, I still think, like Jim Wendler did a nice job with it. I would like you to raise the reps up, but really drop back on the loads. I can't really just, tell you what percent that would be, but I always think that the best way to refresh and to tonic the body is to go back to the exercises, the lifts that brought the issue up in the first place. So if you're doing, high rep squats, and you're going to take a week off, putting on a really light load like 95 or 115 pounds, 135 even, and just getting some easy reps in, stand up, pop it back in the rack, shake it out, feel good, give yourself that, you're done good. Deloading is, I think, I think everyone needs to deload, but it is all over the place. I think the more experience you get with yourself, the more you'll understand your own parameters for deloading. My favorite deloading is just, to go on a road trip to teach, to go on a vacation, which I don't do as often as I should, and just leave the weight room and go for hikes or go bike ride or swim or whatever, kayak, those river adventures, and then just come back after a week and go back to train. That's the best way for me to deload. It could be the fact that I spend so much time in the weight room that it's just, I think the more time you spend in the weight room as a coach and all the other things you might do, the harder it is to, just ramp it up. Opposite, to ramp it down, and just go, yay, I'm just here. All right. Good question. Most of my listeners probably should have 3 weeks, probably a hard week. One of those weeks is hard. One of those weeks is medium. One of those weeks is not necessarily light medium, a lightish medium. And then the fourth week should be a deload, where you try to move well and just give your joints a break. I think that helps long term in even fat loss and hypertrophy, to give the body a break, to really ratchet it up. I hope that helped. Thank you. We got a question from Jay. Jay, this probably is just a question for the two of us, but it's an okay question. Okay, it's a good question. Recently, I watched one of your YouTube videos on your barbell workout, the drill, which is a power snatch to overhead squat to a hang squat snatch followed by a squat snatch from the floor, working up to 5 to 8 reps. Each one of those rounds is considered the rep. All 3 of those snatches is a rep. I thought it was such a simple but brilliant workout that could yield so many benefits. How might you program this into a 3-day week workout schedule? Well, if you're doing the drill, the snatch or the clean and doing the drill, I made it work okay twice a week. So even like you said here, you're going to do 8 sets. Okay, that's great. So Monday, you're going to walk up to the bar, power snatch, overhead squat, bring the bar down to the hang, squat snatch it, and then bring the bar down to the floor, squat snatch it. Bar goes down, you rest, you repeat 7 more times, total of 8 sets. When I did it, I was okay with kind of, I wouldn't say going heavy, because I was okay with doing those 8 and just saying, oh, good for me, I'm happy. Since you're gonna do it 3 days a week, you're gonna have to wave it somehow. I would suggest having a day where you do 8 rounds of that movement. Make it a weight that really challenges you. Maybe 2 days later, do 5 rounds of the movement with a much lighter load and be very snappy. The 3rd day of the week, well, that would be more the medium day. So you're gonna have the hard day, the heavy 8 rounds, the lighter day with the 5 rounds, and then maybe on the 3rd day, 8 rounds with the lighter weight again, and just see if that you can make that 8 rounds with the heavy load over time go up. I hope that helps. It's a good question. Oh, we got a question from Herman. Herman says this, question, kettlebell goblet front squat versus barbell front squat for muscle hypertrophy. Is one better than the other? And should heels be elevated when performing any type of squat for muscle hypertrophy? Well, once again, I just wrote a book on that. I would say that the problem with the kettlebell and the goblet squat is the load is self-limiting. You can only do so much. And I'm sure people online say, oh, I saw a guy do, whatever. It doesn't. it's a kettlebell, so it's not really designed to go heavy. You can certainly go out, I'm sure, to a foundry and get a 400-pound kettlebell, but what would you do with it? I mean, honestly, what would you do with a 400-pound kettlebell? After you snatch it a few times, what else would you do? That's a joke. Our Turkish get-up with the 400-pounder, just, video it. Oh my God, that thing would be huge. The barbell is always going to be better, with asterisks, for hypertrophy work when it comes to legs, because you have that that adjustable barbell, so you can change the loads. You can get really a lot of muscle mass doing front squats for 5 with 405. You'll be a big engine. Some of us, I remember doing 225 for 8s years ago in the front squat, and I thought the last 3 reps were harder than the big maxes I used to do in the front squat. So that's why I always think the barbell is a better tool for most people in most situations for hypertrophy work. Yes, you can get hypertrophy work done very well with the barbell, the dumbbell, body weight, and anything else you want to throw out. Yes, but that's probably it's the barbell's world. It owns more real estate in hypertrophy than the other things. And honestly, if you have enough machines, you can look real good with nothing but machines. Probably the best training program is to have all of them. I have a new book on hypertrophy coming out, and I recommend both the double kettlebell front squats and the barbell front squat as my go-tos. So there you go. So Mac asks a question we've actually answered here a few times, okay? I'm 3 years into our 8-year plan to reach my fitness goals. Good job. I like that sentence. I'm getting very impatient, trying to rush 8 years, and want to pull the trigger on improvement. Mostly kettlebell, push-ups, goblet squats, floor mobility, and bar hangs now. More weight is what my mind is telling me. My main kettlebell is now 20 kilos. I am still unable to complete one pull-up, one of my goals, down from a personal best of 2450 years ago. Adding heavier weights might not cause injury. Recommendation. Well, Mac, you say you're doing bar hangs, but one thing I'm going to tell you to do before you even start worrying about that next pull-up is do the bent arm. You can do them with a chin-up grip, you can do them with a pull-up grip, or you can do them with a neutral grip. I want you to start practicing holds in this position. Ideally, if you can keep the bar like on the skin of the bottom of your throat here, that's ideally where I want you to keep it. In fact, you could even, if you even want to use that as your monitor test, you have to keep your skin on there. That's the second it comes off, you jump off. And I have that one program, I used to call it the post-deployment program, but on the site now it's called Hypertrophy and Mobility Program. And I give you the hang numbers. In month 2 is all the bent arm hangs. To me, that's the most important thing. The fact that you said 50 years ago personal best, and you're 3 years into your 8-year plan, you're on the right track. So just be careful about, rushing too quickly into something and spoiling the progress you've made. Remember, once you start, so the reason I did that little bit of math, I'm guessing you're middle-aged or above, okay? Remember, MAPS, middle-aged pull-up syndrome, is once you hurt that elbow doing pull-ups, they don't come back well. So keep doing the straight arm hangs, add some bent arm hangs, and what you'll notice is once you get up to about anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds holding here, test the pull-up one time, and I almost can guarantee your body will pop you right into position. Okay, thank you. Good question. Got a question from Brendan, great name. This time of year, people's goals are lofty, even unattainable. But for those who chase one rabbit, for those who actually attain the goal, what counsel might you offer them at the completion? Well, Brendan, if you have someone who is a goal achiever, now boy, this is something I talk about with the inner circle constantly. Everybody sets goals and resolutions and nobody follows them up because first off, they don't really want the goal. There's a Lawrence Block book about time travel. It's a burglar who book. And there's a character he talks about who believes that you can get anything you want, and if you don't, you clearly didn't want it enough. And I love the circular reasoning there. I can promise you any goal you want, but if you don't get it, you just didn't want it enough. What a great circular logic moment that is. So when I'm working with the inner circle people, we go through a lot of stuff. One of the things I think a lot of people don't do well enough is they put a goal out there. And I always get my inner circle people, I ask them to do something. First, we do this little values assignment. Does your values line up with your goal? And it's interesting. I'll work with people sometimes and their values are over here and their goal is over there. The next thing, and this is so obvious to me, okay? There's other parts, but I'll just go quickly here. Do your habits support your goal? And I'm not doing this, but this is my daily pirate map, okay? And this is my journal, okay? And every day I go through my pirate map, and I've gone over it 100 times here, but if I do just my daily 5 things on my pirate map, I tend to get the goals I want in life. The next thing I do is part of my to-do list. So number 1, before bed, prep coffee, take supplements, to-do list for next day. So before I go to bed at night, and it helps me sleep immensely, I take a piece of paper, I go down the middle, and I have 2 major goals. And then I write down my to-do list based on those goals. So I got physical goals. I want to be at a certain body weight. I want to have certain levels of strength. I want to dance at Josephine's wedding. And, so I write down the things I expect to do the next day. And sometimes it'll be something like, last night I wrote down press workout with Mike. Well, I've already done it. Walk, ruck. Press workout, ruck. Those are the first 2 things. Eat extra vegetables today. I was on a road trip. On my other side, I've got a whole list of, it's like, I had to call Lonnie today. I got to call Tim. I already called Lonnie. I'll call Tim right after this. I had to go take this thing over to somebody. I had to go do this. I had to fill out that, and I just go down the list. And when I go to bed, I wake up and I'm ready to go. So for goal achievement, now listen, everyone does everyone should do to-do lists. Everyone should do checklists. Everyone should have shopping lists. Everyone should have a menu. I can keep going on all this stuff. Most people don't do that. What the biggest thing I try to get with my inner circle on this particular thing is, let's now look at this goal, and now let's look at the habits. And now my job there is this. If the bulk of your habits support your goal, okay? And there might be a few things missing, like you might, you said you wanted to drink extra water every day, but you don't have a system in place. So habits and systems to me sing like this. So even something as simple as this, when I'm doing my podcast, I've got my Lagoon water thing, and I've got my Parker University water holder. Even when I'm getting ready for my podcast, I drank, 2, 3, 4 glasses of water, which makes me speed up the podcast at the end. So I have systems. I sleep with the water bottle next to me at night with a built-in straw. It's cool. It's really cool. It doesn't spill, and it's real easy to get a sip at night if I wake up. So I increase my water by putting water holding things in areas that are real easy for me to get to. So I've got this one here, the metal water holder here, that I always keep in my office. I got one next to my bed, and I got one in the gym. When I go in the kitchen in the morning, drink my coffee, I drink 1 or 2 of these. It's not fancy. Don't let anyone think what I just said is fancy or complicated, but that's a system to make sure I drink more water. I keep all my vegetables in clear Pyrex bowls. And the reason I do that, when I open the fridge, I can see the kimchi, the sauerkraut, those Brussels sprouts, those whatever, all these vegetables. I can see them when I open my Greek salad, my this, my that. I can see them the moment I open them up. So the next one, Brendan, is what are your systems? And so so do your habits support your goals? Obviously, from the way you said this, you're on the right track. And then any area that you're not kind of ticking the boxes every day, that's when you sit back and you try to put together a system. One of the ways I decided that I want to eat more fish. So I had all these ideas to do it. Well, there's these delivery companies now. I'm not going to tell you the brand or anything unless they pay me. But they'll deliver like 3 meals to you a week. Well, I just checked the box fish, for the fish options, pescatarian options. So 3 nights a week for sure, I eat fish now. They're trout, salmon, and cod usually. That's so just by going to this company, finding the options, and then setting up the delivery, I'm fitting one of my goals to eat more fish and eat more vegetables without even really have to think that much. The other 4 nights a week, I'm an adult, I know how to cook, I'm okay. But this was a real easy way to kind of wedge me into eating more fish and vegetables every night. So that's what I recommend. Look at your habits, and then anything you feel like that's not helping you, set up a system so that it's very easy to turn that desire into just a habit. Coach Mon, the first track meeting we ever had, said probably 10 sentences that just changed my life. Most of you know him. Little and often over the long haul. The other one is how to get good grades at a Division I university. Go to class. I still think that's funny. And the other one was make yourself a slave to good habits. And I still think that little and often over the long haul and make yourself a slave to good habits are just the most foundational, life-changing sentences in my life. I try to revolve everything around either the good habits or little and often. So thank you. Fun question. If you join the inner circle, you'll know this very well. All right. Thank you. We got a question from Tevin. My question to you is, as a father yourself, what were your primary goals in training sessions, and what would you recommend to a new dad? So we've answered this question before here. Let's find out more here. I myself am a new father to an awesome 1-year-old who has nothing but nonstop energy. Before I became a dad, I followed a bro split workouts, and we don't need to go over those. As a 26-year-old new father who works a full-time job in hospital security and a weekend warrior in the National Guard, fitness conditioning are very important. Currently, I've been running your perfect workout routine 3 days a week. Boy, I like what I'm reading already. And endurance training twice a week. I find with my schedule, this is a good dose. My body feels good, gaining decent hypertrophy, and my conditioning feels great. From your experience, do you feel this is an adequate amount of training, or you recommend adding a bit more? Okay, the perfect workout is going to kind of set you on a floor. It's going to kind of just plateau out fairly quickly. Tevin, I like this. Okay, I like what I'm reading. First off, I like the idea that you're lifting 3 days a week, and you're running or doing whatever it is, cardio, twice a week. With you being the National Guard, I know that you have fitness tests. I would recommend that at least once a month, if not once every 2 weeks, take part of those tests and just make sure you check in. I don't know what the National Guard tests are. I'm sorry, I don't, but I know the Army one pretty well, so I'm guessing it might be the same. But if you got to do that T push-up test, do that. If you got to throw the medicine ball, maybe every 2 weeks, pick 2 or 3 of the events and do them. I know that the 2-mile run, that's not a bad idea. Once a month, you go to the gym, you go to the park, you go to the track, whatever setup you're going to want to use to test yourself on that 2-mile run, you go in there and do it. One thing I would recommend, I got a new book coming out that might be pretty good for you. I wouldn't mind seeing you with the perfect workout Also adding in, so maybe go perfect workout twice a week, armor building complex as the middle one, maybe even in addition. So perfect workout, and in one of your workouts, add the armor building complex. Over time, if that works, maybe do the perfect workout on week 2, and then perfect workout with the armor building twice on that week. Just something that get you the collision benefits of the armor building workout. I don't know what you do with the National Guard. Certainly with even your other job with security, you want to be in a position where you can, you got to be able to take a punch, take a hit, take an elbow. So the armor builder might be a good one for you. So I like what you're doing. I like it a lot. I'm adding 2 concepts. Once every 2 weeks, once a month, figure it out. Do the tests that you're required to do for the National Guard. You don't have to max out the tests. I'd much rather you, try whatever numbers you want. See how easy you can get to those numbers. Like say I have to do 8 pull-ups. Well, just see how easy you can make 8 pull-ups. Just practice it that way. Perfect workout. Toss in the armor building program. Try it once a week at first, and then over time, maybe slide up every other week. Do it twice. Okay? I think that's a good idea. This is a bodybuilding program. I just morphed you into a little bit more bodybuilding. But even at 26 as a dad with all your jobs, it's time for you to start thinking long-term about your health and everything else, okay? Especially with the baby. All right? Thank you, Tevin. Okay, Marcus asked a question, and this is really another one of those questions that it's probably just for me and Marcus. I recently bought a vibration plate at a flea market, and I really like it. It has a nice 10-minute program with slow increases, decreases in vibration, 10 minutes. Even my wife likes it. I know you tested one years ago. Yeah, I had 2 blow up on me. And they got those big blue sparks that came out were and that smell, that electric pop smell. Yeah, it was throughout the garage, the one. Any updates on what you think about it? And do you have any suggestions how exercise to do the 10-minute program? We have kettlebells, TRX bands. Marcus, the one, I got away from using them as weightlifting tools, okay? Partially because I kept blowing them up. But I keep mine now. This is going to sound strange to a lot of you, but it's on the floor in my sauna. And the reason I like vibration plates might not be why the advertisers sell them to you, but I like them for what they do for my mobility. I have found that getting that shaking, and then if I do my mobility afterwards, it seems like it opens up spots. Now, in some of the traditions around the planet, one of the ways you achieve mobility is big shaking movements. And even, it's interesting, even just doing those little shrugs there, I got all that energy going into my fingers. I'm not saying I'm stretching my bones. I'm not saying anything like that. But it seems, the vibration seems to prepare me anyway, to really being able to do some concentrated mobility work. So now I'm doing mobility work only 2 days a week. So that's Thursday when everybody shows up for the tonic Thursday workout. Before everyone shows up, I get in the sauna a long time, about an hour before. I sauna and I use the plate. I'll meditate in there. I'll use the plate. I'll get a good sweat on. And then before Mike and everybody else gets here, I'll take a shower. I'll clean up. I'll try to cool off a little bit. So once we start doing the original strength and the mobility work, I have warmed myself up to do the mobility work with the shaking and the heat. The shaking and the heat is really good. Now, I have my own sauna. The floor in my sauna is cold. Because of the way where the heater, the heater's maybe maybe a little bit lower, but about here. And the heat rises. And so the plate always stays cool where I have it, always stays cool. So that's why I like it. Does it build strength and burn off fat and make my cellular system scream with joy? I'm not sure about that, but it sure feels good. So, and sometimes, when you've been competing, let's see, I started competing, in 65 or 66 or something like that? 1965, 1966. Lyndon Baines Johnson was the president of the United States. The upcoming Olympics were Mexico City. I don't think the Super Bowl had started when I first started competing. I don't think so. So I've been doing this a while, and at my age, there are times where being in a hot room, gently being shaken is a nice thing. So I earned it. All right, good question. Thank you. This is our last question. That seemed like it was fast. Alfonso asks a question. I usually don't include loaded carries as part of my daily workout. By God, man. However, I help my parents with groceries and water jugs when they are too heavy for them. I move stuff around for my neighbor when he is fixing his garden, and carry my nephews around when I'm taking care of them. Any of these happen 2 to 3 times a week. Hey, one of the greatest loaded carry workouts I ever had in my life was this little place called Disneyland. And if anyone's ever brought a 2 and a 4-year-old to Disneyland, one of the things you better prepare yourself for, my daughters were not going to be in strollers. Breaks my heart when I'm at Disneyland and I see boys old enough to play with cell phones and yell at their moms being pushed in a stroller. I mean, I think one kid was 9 or maybe 10. I was just like, dude, man, this is not a good start. Yeah, if you have a 2 and a 4-year-old and you go back, Toontown, if you go back to Toontown, don't let them see It's a Small World, because you don't want to be on that ride. But when you get to Toontown and yay, they play, and all of a sudden they're like, Daddy, carry me. And it's like, oh boy, here we go. Because you got a long walk ahead of you. Is this enough, or should I make an extra effort to include loaded carries using weights? Any other ideas on staying fit while providing a service for others? I mean, your example, Alfonso, is really pretty much why I tell people to do loaded carries, because it brings up life work capacity. I notice this sometimes when we're doing stuff around the house, and it doesn't always have to be very hard. My daughter's wedding was in the backyard, and just getting the chairs up and down the stairs to the backyard, and then up and down the stairs back, and then carrying this thing out and there's stairs and there's stairs and there's stairs. And even though those church chairs only weigh, I don't know, a couple of pounds each, you get hot, tired, and sweaty if you're doing yard work and you gotta bark. You get those 75 pounds of, is it 50 pounds of bark, whatever they are, and you're carrying them back and forth and back and forth. They're good workouts. Alfonso, I do want you to have a reality check with yourself, and I want you to maybe just jot down how often it is, because the groceries and the water jugs are great, and the neighbors is great, but most people need to do loaded carries. I do them every workout, but most people do need to do them at least 2 to 3 times a week. Okay, so just do a maybe use your journal and make a note of it or something like that. Okay, but of all the things I've ever done in the weight room, loaded carries have had the best carryover to life of anything I've ever done. And it also made me throw the discus and the Highland Game events farther. So, it's good for performance, and it's also good for being a good neighbor. And like a good neighbor, I'll be there for you, okay? Well, listen, that was easy today. Episode 239 is finished. And remember, if you have a question, podcast at danjohnuniversity.com. Each and every week, I sit down and answer your questions, and I enjoy doing it. And as always, until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. All right? Thank you.